Hello, my name is Erica Quiroz, and I am here with writer and musician Ryan Truax. Ryan's book, If I Die, Here's What I Meant, has already hit the #1 bestsellers list in 3 categories, one of them being in the category of psychology of suicide. Ryan, it is so amazing to be talking to you today.
Thank you so much, Erica, for having me. It's truly a privilege. I appreciate it.
Of course. Well, first off, tell us about your book, If I Die, Here's What I Meant, and what does it represent?
Yeah, so it's basically a 200-page poetry book, and it's broken down into 4 categories: love, loss, life, and the Lord. And it's essentially just meant to encapsulate my journey and my evolution from being an athlete and an honor student when I was a teenager into drug addiction and a trip to the psych ward and dropping out of high school, eventually going into business and fitness and nutrition and my faith in God. So it's been a huge arc and it's been quite a journey, but it's just kind of a poetic approach to explain what's been going on.
Your life has had so many stages and colors. I really want to dive into your past, specifically the loss of two very important people in your life, your mother to cancer and then your father to suicide. There are so many people out there that are dealing with the same sense of loss. What would you tell them?
Sure, that's a great question. I would, above all else, tell them to embrace the grieving process. I think there's stigma in regards to grief. I think a certain demographic even denies the existence of grief. And oftentimes, when we're facing the loss of someone that we love, we are encouraged to just go back to normal, if you will. And in terms of a physical wound, you don't just go about your day without disinfecting it, cleaning it, and stitching it up. I think in a spiritual sense, it's very much the same. So I would encourage people who are struggling, whatever loss you're facing, to really take your time and take that season to be still and to process those emotions. And being sad doesn't mean that you're unhealthy. I think we confuse sadness with unhealthiness and we fear that process when ironically that process is what leads to ultimate healing so that we can successfully move on.
I love that. That sad does not equal not healed or any of that. So I want to talk about the struggle of loss and how that also contributed to another hardship that you had in your life, specifically drug addiction. There are so many people around the world that plagues their lives. What do you tell to them? And what was your journey to sobriety like?
A lot of it is your approach. We generalize, there's stigmas. A lot of people say, and I know that this is controversial, but a lot of people say I'm an addict and that's my identity and that's just going to be the way it is for the rest of my life. And I can only speak from my own experience, and that is I had addictive behaviors, but that wasn't my identity. And I think we confuse behavioral traits with our persona, and there's a huge difference. And I would encourage people that nobody is beyond redemption, and everybody can change as long as you are tactical and consistent about changing. And I think if you hold yourself accountable, you'd be absolutely shocked as to what you can accomplish, because I am literally not special. Like, there's nothing special about me at all. I was just determined to get sober and to make a positive change. So I think how you define your behavior is very important, because you never want your mistakes to become your identity, and they don't have to.
What was the moment that you decided that you were going to change your identity and you were going to make that change? And how did you do it?
It was after my dad took his own life, and the way he took his own life was horrifically tragic. He jumped off a bridge, and it was very, very traumatic. And that was at the height of my drug use, and I decided that I just can't do this anymore, and I can't use my father's death and his past mental health issues as a crutch to be angry and to act out in a negative manner, because the only person that it was ultimately affecting was myself. So I think it's a sense of empowerment and also a form of humility to just recognize the fact that the world, frankly, owes you nothing. Life is really hard and we all go through tragedy, but that's not an excuse to give up or use your hardships as a reason to live a mediocre life. And I think we all have so much potential and we're all gifted with so much talent. So I would encourage people to just understand that despite anything that you go through, you can change. Again, it goes back to your prior question.
What resources did you use to really create the life you have today and make that change?
Yeah, that's important. Above all else, for me, it's God, my faith in God. I'm a proud Christian, and the beauty of the writing is that it's unified a lot of people from every faith and ideology and theology. But for me personally, to not mention God would be to remove the creator of the equation, and the equation is
Mhm.
sobriety. But He really enabled me to have the endurance to get through that season. Aside from that, it's accompanying yourself with really positive people. And you always want to be the most ignorant person in the room. You want people around you to be smarter than you and more mature than you. So I would encourage people to challenge yourself to be around people who are further along, and that's okay. You don't have to do the comparison game. And I think nutrition, exercise, rest, a lot of water, a routine, and finally just avoiding people who are going through a season of addiction. And I had to cut ties with people I love deeply who were addicts, but I couldn't be in that environment. So don't be afraid to cut people out of your life for the sake of
Mhm.
healing.
I love that. It's all about balance and really figuring out what is best for you. So I want to dive into your social media platform as well. You have 122,000 people who are
Yeah.
following you that agree. Tell us about that and how that's grown.
Yeah, that's incredibly humbling. I literally started on Instagram less than a year ago. It's funny that we're talking now, and it's almost a year to the day. It's like 11 and a half months. I started with basically no followers, no posts, no idea how to market myself. And I essentially just came to the end of myself and realized, you know what, if my peers, friends, and family judge me and think I've gone off the deep end, so be it. And I just threw myself into my writing in a very vulnerable manner. So I think vulnerability was a great source of ammunition, and it just garnered this huge amount of momentum in a fairly quick amount of time, and ended up having followers from over 50 countries, and my work has been shared over 500,000 times. And that's not to boast, it's quite the opposite. I just think it's so incredible how society can band together simply due to vulnerability and openly discussing brokenness. So it's been an extraordinarily humbling experience, and I'm just excited to be a small part of it, really, because it's about them, it's not about me.
So I want to get back to your book a little bit. What was
Sure.
it like writing the book? I mean, poetry about vulnerability and your own personal secrets. And how was that like?
It was exhilarating and terrifying. And my writing on Instagram is very vulnerable, but the book is even more vulnerable. It really goes into meticulous depth as to what I've gone through, and trauma and insecurities and struggles ranging from addiction to past lust, and learning how to treat intimacy and sexuality with more respect, and treating intimacy as a sacred act. And I think we're afraid to talk about things like that because they are very sensitive subjects and they are sacred subjects. And so, but I never wanted to fear discussing those things. And the artists that I admire the most are the most fearless. And even if they're fearful, they ignore it and they courageously write anyway. So I was really just trying to emulate people that I've connected with. And I know that there's kids out there, young people and older people as well, who are in need of encouragement. And all it takes is somebody who's willing to be vulnerable. So it was just kind of an act of defiance against my own fears to really embrace everything that I've gone through and to try to use it for a larger purpose.
What do you hope people get out of this book?
Yeah, I would just hope that people would be encouraged by it and would realize that they can also evolve no matter how much they're struggling. And the struggles that we experience in this world are unfortunately vast, but our potential is infinite. Again, I try to look at it as a fan, as a fan of writing and art. And I'm always so greatly encouraged by normal people who have lived normal lives, who are extraordinarily brave in sharing their stories. I think there's so much beauty and power in that. So I would hope that it would influence people to pursue whatever they're interested in pursuing. And it doesn't have to pertain to art at all. It doesn't have to pertain to a career at all. It could just be pertaining to losing weight, or to working on your temper, or reconciling a relationship with your parents. It could be anything. So I just hope that it will encourage people to live a higher quality life.
Well, If I Die, Here's What I Meant is already a bestseller in the pre order stage. How can people get this book?
You can get the book on my website. It's rytruax.com, www.rytruax.com. You can also get it directly on Amazon. It's available on hard copy and ebook, and that's available throughout the world. So it's incredibly exciting.
Awesome. Thank you so much for talking with us today, Ryan, and your inspirational words.
Oh, it's a privilege, Erica. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Pressful. It's so easy, as it should be.